You did what God told you to do, and you are now standing there looking at everything that he just said, and your first thought was, this can't be it. Like, you were paying attention to everything that he said, and you didn't misunderstand him. You heard him very clearly, but you stood in front of the thing that he just told you to do and thought that it was too small. Like, this is just too ordinary. There has to be more to this than what I just did. So you added to it. And if you're being, like, let's be honest, you probably explained it to people and it sounded bigger, I think, than maybe sometimes we envision it. And you worked around it so something else would carry more of the weight. And you put more effort in it than it needed to. And you did what he said, and then you got busy. You were so busy in all of that, making it look sufficient enough for what you envisioned, because on its own, it didn't seem like it was enough. We are in Exodus 12 today, and this is a chapter that we're diving in, and it's going to cover all of that. So how many of you have ever done what God told you to do, and then you immediately thought, there's no way. There's no way this is going to be enough. If that is you, good morning. You can put, yes, that's me. I have done that. I've done that before. And I welcome you guys in. Happy Monday. Good morning. As you guys come into the chat, I'd love to see you here, see who's with us today. Good morning to each and every one of you. Good morning, Mary, Kat, Kim, Anita, Erica, Katie. Good morning. So if you guys have ever heard God say something to you and you thought, there's just no way, that seems too simple, God, then I want to know who this section of Exodus is going to be for today. Because we are in Exodus 12 today, and this chapter is something that I hope shifts our mindset about how we understand what God has asked us to do in this season. So if you're just joining, the question that I asked when you guys first came in is, have you ever done something specific and it looks so small or so ordinary that you almost didn't trust it? If that's you, put a Y in the comments, or yes, or that's me, whatever that looks like for you. Good morning. We're going to get started here shortly. We're going verse by verse in scripture. We are in the book of Exodus. We're going to be in the book of Exodus for a little while. We are in chapter 12. I want to know how your morning's going as well. Did you guys have a good weekend? Anything interesting? I want to know how today looks. Good morning to each and every one of you. So if you are new to this live, welcome. We go through study for about 2 hours. We're going to go into the text. We go into the Hebrew. We're going into the history, the culture of the word and the world at that time that the scripture was written in. And I love looking at the things that I feel like most people miss. The things where we're going to ask why God was this specific. Like, why these instructions? Why this door? Why this plant? Why this lamp? Like, all the things. That's because God doesn't give arbitrary instructions. And we see that in every single detail of Exodus 12. It's going to be doing something. And by the time we finish, I hope that you guys understand why he asked this specific thing of Israel and what he's asking of you right now, and that it isn't too small. It's exactly the right amount because he said it is. So that's where we're going to be. Good morning. Good morning to each and every one of you. Sandra. Silenced Secrets. Happy Thoughts, which is my aunt. Good morning, Aunt Tina. Erica, Tina, all of you guys. Good morning. If you are new here and this is your first time, can you let us know that? We want to welcome you in. Let us know who you are and just say good morning. All right, so my name is Vanessa. We do this Bible study verse by verse every single Monday through Friday. And we are going through the book of Exodus. And if this is your first time here and you decided to stay, good morning. I love seeing you guys come into the chat. Good morning, Anivet. Okay. This is the kind of study that we do I feel like my goal is always to view it so differently than when you came in, to show you things that maybe you've never seen in Scripture before, or seen God's heart in this way. I just want to glorify Him in every way that we can. So for the next 2 hours, we're going to go through the Hebrew, through the history, through the culture, the things that I feel like most people maybe miss. Okay. Then we're going to we open in prayer here in just a second, and then we are going to do a recap of Exodus 11. So when you guys first came in, I did have a question for you. I'll say it one more time. And if you guys have answered, also please put in your prayer requests. Okay. Have you ever done something, like done this specific thing that God has asked you to do? And maybe it looks so small or so ordinary to you that you almost didn't trust it. You're like, God, this is too small. Like, this can't be this simple. Can't be this easy. If that is you, can you put that in the chat? Say, yes, that's me. I have had that happen to me before. Whatever that looks like. We're going to dive deeper in that today. And then we're going to start in prayer. All right, so keep your prayer requests coming in. I'm going to pray over all of us and then do our recap, all right? Heavenly Father, I thank you for allowing us to be on this live today. Father, thank you for the opportunity for those that may not be here to catch it on the replay. We invite you in this morning. Please give us a peace and a comfort as we listen to your word. Please allow it to reach the parts of us that are hurting, that are hungry for your word, that we grow a deeper relationship with you, Father. We thank you for all that you've given us. Thank you for showing us your nature. Thank you for loving us so beautifully. I know that you see every comment as it comes through. I want to remind each and every person of who you are, Father. You are one that is with us during the struggle. A Father that shows us time and time that you are with us if we're paying attention enough. That you go before us and you make a way before we even know that there's any need. Thank you for all that you do. Please fill me with wisdom and discernment to represent your word accurately. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. All right. So we are going to get started in our recap before we get into chapter 12, which is where we're going to be in Exodus today. So if there are any of you that missed the replay or missed Exodus 11, there are replays. If you click on the gold icon at the bottom left hand of your screen, you guys can get any of the replays for any of the days that we've done so far. So we started in Genesis, now we're in Exodus 11. Exodus 11 is actually shorter. It was 10 verses, and it's actually the shortest chapter in the entire plague narrative. And it was, I would say Exodus 10 and 11 have been some of my favorite that we have done so far. In Exodus 11, it held something that took the entire 2 hours that we did the study to unpack because of how much was compressed inside of it. And I think it's really easy for people to just read the 10 verses and not truly see the depth of it. So here's the thread that we followed in all of that. So God had been working in the background the entire time that Israel was waiting. When we went into verse 3, it told us that the Lord made Moses highly regarded in the land of Egypt and in the eyes of Pharaoh's officials and the people. And so Israel had no access to that. Like, those are things that Israel couldn't have done on their own. They couldn't even see it happening. They, at this point, were still enslaved, and the circumstances hadn't changed around them. But God, right? But God. He was building something invisible to them in places that they didn't even know to go. And he did it with people who they were not in relationship with. And then God came to Moses with one final announcement. He said, one more plague. After this one, Pharaoh will let you go. Not eventually, like he's going to let you go. Like he's going to drive you completely out of this place. And that's where we ended, right? There was an announcement and a promise. And it was sitting on the other side of just one more night. So Exodus 12 is that night that we ended on, and everything that God has told him to do inside of that. So I want to spend a minute here before we get into the text, because I think this is something that we need to hear before we dive into the fullness of chapter 12. You're not somebody who is afraid of doing hard things. So I want you guys to hear this piece of it. This is not, for most of you, this isn't actually what's happening right now. You'll work, right? You'll do the things that are hard. You've probably demonstrated that very clearly. Like you'll put in the time, you'll do the difficult thing. And you're going to hold on to something that is really heavy without asking for help because you've decided that's just what it takes. The difficulty isn't the obstacle for you. Oddly enough, the obstacle is actually the most simple part of it, right? The thing that kind of holds you back is just how simple it is. Like when God gives you something specific and ordinary, something that takes one afternoon instead of like 6 months, something that doesn't require you to have credentials or a background or a platform or like a great strategy. Something that your neighbor probably would look at and immediately understand why you thought it was significant. That's the instruction that trips you up. Somewhere in your formation, like as you've gone through life, you've learned that the amount of effort and impressiveness, those were the things that determined the actual outcome. That the more you brought to something, the better chance it had of actually working. And you felt like ordinary kind of was a liability to you. So when God says something very simple and very plain, your brain doesn't even register it as sufficient. Like your brain registers it as incomplete. Like there must be more to this. So instead of just doing whatever simple thing that God is telling you and just trusting it, you add a layer to it. Or maybe you supplement more to it. Like you stand in the middle of what God told you to do and you start improving it. Because if you just stand there with what he originally told you, it just feels like, oh, this isn't enough. We have like this internal logic in our minds that we tend to play it safe. And whether that's in school or work. So as we go through this, I want you to keep that in mind because we do that just naturally. It's not us being irrational. It was something that we learned in order to adapt, and it worked somewhere along the line. But here's what it does when God is the one that's giving you the instructions. It essentially puts you in a position of deciding whether what he said was not quite enough and what you needed to do to add to it. Those are two completely different postures. They're two completely different postures of obedience. So what Israel is about to receive is the most specific set of instructions that God has ever given them in the entire Exodus narrative. And the question that ends up running through all of it is the same question that a lot of us have in this season that we are right now. Do we trust that what he said is enough? Or do you need to look at it like there must be more before we can actually do what he said? All right? Does that resonate with any of you? And if you guys are just coming in, good morning. Can you guys put that in the chat? I want to see who's new here. I have a gift for you guys. At the bottom, there's a gold icon. I have a gift for you. So if you are new, put that in the chat and go get that gift for you. But if this sounds like any of you guys, I want to know because this is where we're going today. There have been times where God has been in my life and I'm like, this is what you're asking of me, Lord? There must be more to that. How can I serve you more? Or maybe I'm just waiting for more instruction, whatever that is. Okay, keep that in mind as we go through. So we are in Exodus 12. And it says, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, 'This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.'" Okay. So now at this point, the Lord has spoken to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, "This month is going to be your beginning of months, and it shall be the first month of the year to you." So God essentially gives this single instruction without the standard sacrifice, right? The lamb or the blood or the door frame that we're familiar with. He's actually restructuring how Israel counts time. So if you think about what that means, Israel has been in Egypt for about 430 years at this point. That's 430 years. That's longer than the United States has even been a nation, right? I think this year it's 250 years that we're celebrating. They've been in forced labor for almost double that amount. It's not quite, obviously. They have been operating on Egyptian time. So the Egyptian calendar, which is different, right? Egyptian seasons and festivals and their rhythms as well. So everything that they measured, every year of life they counted was structured by somebody else's system. So the very first thing that God tells him or tells them, before he tells them anything about what's supposed to happen, he says, "We're going to be changing the calendar." So from this point forward, the way that you count time, it actually starts here. This moment is going to become the first month of your year. So it's going to be your reference point for everything that comes after. It just begins here. And I love that this is a theological statement. It's about what deliverance actually brings to a relationship. Like their relationship essentially with time. Actually, I need to put this on loop, guys, so sorry. If I don't, it's going to play like all of the songs, and I don't necessarily want it to do that. I forgot to do that this morning. Okay. The reason I call that out is because I feel like in this moment here, what God is saying there's something underneath that instruction. Like the life that you've lived up until this moment, it still happened, right? Like those 430 years, they were real. And all that suffering that they experienced, it was real. None of that's going to get erased, but it is no longer the reference point that you're going to use to understand your story. This moment actually is going to be that. It's the moment of deliverance that becomes the beginning of how you count. So I want you to think about this in your personal life and in your business. Like we've all had a before and after, right? There's a point where it feels like maybe God hasn't said it in this way, but your calendar changed, right? Like the way that you used to measure what matters, or the way that you understand your own story, or like the way you interpret what's behind you, it kind of shifted. So some of you are inside that moment right now and you don't know it yet because it doesn't feel like the beginning. It feels like the middle of a very long, hard thing. It feels like you're in month 7 of something that was supposed to resolve like month 3. It just feels like it's taking so much longer than what it needed to. But God goes in and restructures the calendar before the deliverance is visible to us. He changes how Israel counts before they've even walked out of Egypt. Before Pharaoh says, just go, right? Before they see a single thing that changes on the surface, the new year starts in the dark while they're still there. Right? So if some of you are not familiar with Exodus 10 and 11, please go back in. Go watch the replays. I have them available for you guys in that little link. And I say that because it helps with the understanding of the depth of where God is going. So the original word for month, it actually, it comes from the word for new moon. And so what God is saying in this moment is when the moon is new and the sky is dark, you can't see anything. That's where your year is going to begin. Not in this full moon that brought like the brightness of the moment. It happened in a dark one. So what it's saying is your beginning is starting somewhere that it looks like it's darkness. And that is not a problem with the timing. That's exactly how God designed it to be. So in your moment where everything just looks like, I don't understand this, and God's asking you to do just one simple thing, that's where it actually begins, right? He's saying, let me take this and renew this. So then when he goes to verses 3 through, I'll read 3 through 6, it says, "Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And the lamb is too small, that household is too small for the lamb. Let him and his neighbors next to his house take it according to the number of the persons. According to each man's, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male or from the goats. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall unalive it at twilight." Okay? And so I'll give you an example of simple really quick. So imagine God said, I just need you to send a text to someone saying, good morning. And you're like, that's it? Like, that's all I have to do? And God's like, yes. But what you don't know is everything in the background, that person felt lonely. They felt unseen. They felt like they had nobody to talk to. And they said, I just wish somebody would say good morning to me. And you were like, that's all I have to do, God? And you're like, he's like, yep. You're like, don't say like anything else, just good morning. And he's like, yeah, just say good morning. And then you do, and it changes that entire person's day. It was that confirmation that they needed to get the ball rolling. Or like maybe you've been in a strained relationship with somebody for so long, and God is saying, just say hi to them. Just wave to them. Just next time you see them, just wave to them. And it took that awful, strained relationship. Like that's all they were looking for, is that confirmation for you to say, just to wave, to know that you're there. Like the instructions seem so simple, and he's like, that's all you need to do, because I've already done the hardest part of it. I have already gone and changed that heart posture for them. And I've been doing it time and time again. It's like that simple. Okay? What we're seeing in verses 3 through 6 is that essentially, like, he's speaking to the entire congregation of Israel at this point. And he's telling them, like, take one lamb per household. One lamb has to be a male that is 1 year old without a blemish. And then you have to keep it for 4 days. So I want to slow down on the word without blemish. I know that a lot of us are familiar with what this means, okay? But in Hebrew, it's doing something that the English doesn't fully carry through. Like it's not carrying the weight of what this actually means. So in Hebrew, the word is tamim. It's Tamim, okay, tamim. And tamim doesn't actually mean ceremonially clean. It doesn't mean like you inspect it and it was approved by a priest. It actually means whole, like complete, nothing missing from it, like nothing broken inside of it. So this is the same word that God uses when he speaks to Abraham in Genesis 17. He says, walk before me and be tamim. I always intend to make like slides so you guys can see it, so I don't have to say the word, but I didn't get a chance to. Anyway, the same word is translated as blameless. And that we saw that happening in Genesis 6 with Noah. It's a word about wholeness. So essentially, it's about the integrity of the sacrifice in the original sense. So the thing is what it appears to be all the way through. Like there's no fractures, there's no hidden damage, no part of that is no part of it that is presenting as fine, but it's actually compromised underneath. It's fine, right? There's nothing structurally that you can see. It's good. So this lamb had to be proven as tamim for 4 days. And it was not enough to look at it once and then just declare that it was good or declare that it was acceptable. There had to be 4 days where it was watched and examined, and that was just the requirement. So the requirement was that by the time the 14th came, there was no question about the lamb. So every single person in that household had been living with it long enough to know that this animal is it's acceptable, right? This is a part that I think a lot of people don't fully understand what that without blemish means. Like, I think sometimes people are like, its coat looks pretty, it's perfectly white. No, it means so much more than that. So guys, I'm sorry. I'm a little slow today, so bear with me. I feel like my words aren't coming out right. My Oura ring says I'm under a little bit of strain. So sorry if I feel like robotic and slow today, but that's just my day. So I want to talk to you guys about a little known fact. And there'll be like 5 of them, I think. I think I found at least 4 or 5. I try to find at least 4 to present to you guys. So the first one is the Egyptian god in your household. So in Egypt, the lamb wasn't just an animal. The ram was a symbol of the creator god. Okay, I think the name was, I'm going to put it in the chat for you guys because I'm not even going to attempt this name today. Okay. Oh, it's not pasting. There we go. Okay. This is the creator god. So the god that was credited with like in Egypt. They believe that this god was crediting with forming human life on his potter wheel. Okay. So the god whose image was carved into the temples and then in certain religions of Egypt. So the sheep was sacred enough that you didn't eat it, and you absolutely didn't unalive it publicly. It was sacred to them. So we know from Genesis 43 that the Egyptians actually would not eat with Hebrews, specifically because the Hebrews ate lamb. That's how embedded this was. They wouldn't even be near them while they were eating it. It wasn't just a food preference to them. It was a theological line. They're like, we're not going to cross this. So if you saw an Egyptian that was sitting at a table with a Hebrew who ate lamb, that was crossing a kind of like defilement in their world. So essentially when God tells Israel, go get a lamb and bring it to your house and keep it there for 4 days in full view of the neighborhood, he's not telling them to do some private devotional practice. He's telling them to make a public theological statement. So every Egyptian neighbor who walked past the Hebrew household for 4 days, they saw a lamb. So watching it be kept and they watched it be fed, they knew what was coming in the 14th day. Okay, there were 4 days that Israel walked out of the declaration that the thing that Egypt worshiped was not their God. They were publicly saying, this is not our God. And they're doing it very visible, like in a way that their neighbors could see it and have a very strong reaction. They had a lot of feelings about it. That cost them something. Like the public act of doing something that your environment doesn't agree with and what the people have watched. The people have been watching them like have a framework for interpreting something offensive or confusing or wrong. It's not a comfortable 4 days for them. Like, you're keeping the lamb in your windows where your neighbors can see it, and they know that they know what you think about it, and you do it anyway because God said to, right? We have so much of that in our modern day, right? How we feel about certain lifestyles or certain religions or just beliefs, right? Sometimes we have to be loud and clear about them because God has told us that's the way that we need to be, and it's not comfortable. Because in our hearts, we know what God has spoken to us, what the word says, while the world around us is like, no, you're being awful, you're being hateful, you're being all of these things, and it's not comfortable, but you're standing firm on what God has told you, right? Like, we've probably had a version of this, whether that's in our business, like a business decision that was visible to people who didn't agree with it. And the public's like, this is what happened to me in my business, right? So many people were like, faith and business, you don't talk about them. Like, you don't put faith front and center and be bold about it. That's like taboo. You don't talk about that. And I was like, I'm being bold in my faith. My Creator is the one that gave me this business. Why would I not glorify him in everything? I'm not gonna stay quiet because some people don't share the same faith as me. I want to help those to understand who he is. So like the public says, yes, like, oh, let's keep it quiet. Like you can practice your faith, but we want you to do it quietly so it doesn't inconvenience anybody, right? Like the public says yes to something that the professional world had a framework for, like understanding that it was like they understood it as naive, or you were playing too small, or like theologically that's not necessary for you to do that. Like you don't want to alienate too many people because you're putting faith in your business. So the move that looked like a declaration to people who could read what you were doing, they probably had opinions on it. There were people that had opinions on it. People that are like, oh, that's all you talk about, right? God designed the instruction to be visible. He didn't say, do this thing quietly. He said, bring it into the house. 4 days, let it be seen. He wasn't always protecting you from the discomfort of being publicly misunderstood, right? He says that in Scripture, that we will face trials because we follow him, that we will go through a lot as we are followers. Sometimes the obedience is specifically structured to be public. So in verses 7 through 13, and if you guys are just joining us, good morning. Good morning, Kizzle. I almost called you Kenzie. My screen is that far away that I'm like, oh. Good morning to you guys as you come in. We are in Exodus 12. If you are new here and this has been different for you, like you're like, I feel like this makes a little bit more sense. Can you guys just say good morning? If you're new here and you're like, I've never read Exodus 12, but this is making a little bit of sense. It's not for me. I just want to glorify him today. He is so good. He is so good. I just sit in awe of him. This weekend, after I ended my live on Friday, I've never seen God move in the way that he did for my family and I. So I just sit here today being on this live with you, and I ask you, sometimes it feels like, wow, that's the first time God has ever moved in my life in that way. But it's the first time I actually knew what to look for. To look for in that depth, because I would have missed it. I have missed so many times that he has spoken to me because I didn't fully know him. That's why I bring these studies to you in this way. How do we know him? Because he's been working in the background even before we were born, but we miss it. One day, you guys, one day we'll be able to share the fullness of the testimony that he walked us through. I can't right now, but one day, if you guys were on with us on Friday when we went through Exodus 11, in the fullness of what he did, I probably won't ever even see. But we covered the fact that he goes in before us in the background and changes the heart posture of people. And he does something that you're going to just know it's him. And in a way that you can tell your children and your grandchildren and your grandchildren's children. And I know there's probably been so many times that he's done that for each and every one of us. And so I'm like, how do we know Scripture? How do we get to know him more? So if there's ever anything that you guys are like, let's dive deeper into it, please let me know. I want you to experience him in the way that I have. if you have not. So, good morning, you guys. We are in Exodus 12. We are in verses 7 through 13 right now. And we go live for about 2 hours. I am in the New King James Version of Scripture. I want to know, you guys, what is something, it could just be like a little sign that God showed you. Like, Katie, yours is reminding me. Like, I just shared mine. But I want to know, like, what's even a little thing that God has shown you of him lately? Has it been in your marriage? Is it like Katie's story where there's a little bird, a butterfly? Just little things. I want to see. I want to like come back and read those because those are so beautiful to me. But that was mine, where he showed up for us in a way that was only him. So I'll get back to it. We are in Exodus 12, verses 7 through 13. I feel like I'm like a sloth today. Feel like I'm just going to ease into it today. Okay. I was looking for Exodus 7. It was taking me a minute. Or Exodus verse 7 in chapter 12. So, and they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they will eat. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in the fire, with unleavened bread, and with no bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in the fire. Its head with its legs, and its entrails. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus you shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, and sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, so you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Now the blood shall be a sign for you in the houses where you are. And when I see it, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Okay, that was Exodus 12, verses 7 through 13. I have a New King James Version of Scripture. All right, I want to know what you guys are reading from, or what your typical book is if you're just sitting and listening to. Okay, I always know I love knowing what you guys are doing as you're listening. You don't have to be reading along. I just love knowing what you're up to. A lot of you are at work. Some of you are listening on your drive. I want to know those things. That way, like, you can see what I'm doing, but when I picture you guys, I'm just like, what are they up to? All right, so there's a word, it's called hyssop. So later in the chat, or not chat, later in the chapter, in verse 22, God specifies the instrument. He says, take a branch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and I want you to strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts. Something very specific, right? I would be nervous if God gave me an instruction like that. I'd be like, I hope I don't miss anything. Like, let me write this down really quick, God. This is very important. Which obviously the instruction was very simple, but there's a lot of detail in it as well. Hyssop is actually a low-growing shrubbery plant, and it grows in rocky soil. So it grows out of the cracks of stone walls. And it was everywhere in that world. Like, you didn't purchase it. You didn't even have to search for it. You just walked outside and it was already there. Like, it is one of the most common plants in that region. So a plant that nobody would call special. God didn't say, go find cedar, or like, bring me the most impressive instrument available. He specified, or like he wanted the common plant, the one that was already in their hands, like the one that nobody was going to remark on. So the instrument for the most significant act of protection in all of Israel's history was an ordinary plant that they had access to. This matters for a very specific reason. So the instruction for deliverance wasn't actually structured around what they needed to acquire. It was structured around what they already had. So God didn't require access to like impressive tools or anything of massive significance, right? Before the deliverance would happen, he required that they use the one thing that was already in their hands to apply what he just told them to apply. And I feel like for some of us, we have been waiting to have the right thing, right? The perfect amount of followers before you show up consistently, the right offer before you launch, the right clarity before you make the move that God has been placing in your mind time and time again, the right confidence before you show up and speak publicly, or like whatever that looks like. And the instruction that God has given you in this season, it doesn't require any of what you're waiting on to acquire it. It requires hyssop, right? That common thing that is already in your hand, like the thing that you've been looking at and thinking, this is too ordinary to be what he meant. I want to give you another example, because I do this time and time again with the women that I coach. They think that thing that makes them so special and unique is common to everybody else. Like you could be somebody who is a perfect listener. Like people come to you and you listen. And God is saying, I want you to use that very thing. And you're like, everybody does that. And he's like, not the way that you do. The way that you take care of your family, the way that you are so naturally inept to see logic in situations. You think that's common to you, right? This sounds like this is just what everybody does. And God is like, no, it actually isn't. This is part of your gift. And you're looking at it as too ordinary. And God is saying that is the exact thing that I'm going to use to do something significant with it. And I want you to look at where the blood goes. Okay, there's 2 doorposts. So the sides, the lintel, the top, 3 points of application. Okay. Jewish scholars actually noticed this centuries before Jesus was born. So the shape of it made the shape made 3 points of application on the door frame. It was the left, the right, and the top. Right? Left, right, top. The rabbis actually wrote about it as not as a projection backwards. They noticed it in the text itself, that this 3-point application, it forms the shape of what would be, it's left, right, like this. I don't know why I was doing a triangle. It's left, right, down like that. So it actually forms the shape of what would later be the instrument of the cross. Okay. So in verse 13, it talks about, now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see this blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Do you guys see the significance in that? Okay. Now the blood shall be the sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see it, I'm going to pass over you. So I want to spend some time on the word Passover here, because the English doesn't do it enough justice. So this word is Pesach. And it doesn't mean that God skipped the house. It doesn't even mean that he walked past it and moved on. The root word of it carries the meaning of hovering over. It means protecting by standing over it, like covering it by being present on it. Okay, so what this word is, I'll say it for you guys again. The shape that was made by the 3 points of the application on the door frame was left, right, top, right? Left, right, top. That 3 point, the 3 points of what it framed is the cross. Okay. And so it didn't mean that he hovered or that he just walked past it. I think that's what a lot of people envision, is the spirit moving past it. Like they walked past it and moved on. The root word of it actually means to hover over, to protect it by standing over it, covering it by being present at it. So when you see this root word, it actually appears in Isaiah 31:5. It says, as birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts protect Jerusalem. Protecting and delivering and passing over, he's going to preserve it. I'm going to give you this word in the chat because I'm not saying it again because I think I'm saying it wrong. Okay? This is that root word. You're going to find it in Isaiah 31:5. And passing over it, he's going to preserve it. So the image is actually of a bird hovering over a nest, like with their wings spread, like present and watching, not passing by or standing over. Can you picture that? Like a mama bird hovering over her babies, carrying them, keeping them safe from the storm. Like God didn't just look at the house and see this sign. He didn't just see the sign on the door and just skip past it. He stood at the door and he was present at it. He was covering it. He was active. He was there. How many of you guys have ever heard that before? Prior to this study, I didn't know that. I have always pictured it as almost like a... How many of you guys are like familiar with Harry Potter? I can't remember what those things are. The things that are like black and they fly. They look like ghosts. I can't remember what they are. Yes, Dementors. Like I pictured like a Dementor flying past them, past each house. And if it saw the sign, it just passed over. Like that's what I envisioned. And I think maybe I've envisioned it like that because maybe that's how it's portrayed. That's how I pictured it. Not like a beautiful mama bird hovering over her nest, protecting them. That is so much more beautiful. So much more beautiful. And I think too, it helps me to understand God's heart. Because a lot of people see this final plague and they think, wow, he was mad, right? But he didn't just look at the house with blood on it and on the door and skip it. He stood at the door, present with them, actively covering it. He was there with them. When we get to the second half of verse 13, it says, when I see that, like when I see this sign, I'm going to pass over it, and the plague will not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So when I see this sign, right? He didn't say, not when I see your faithfulness, or not when I see how tired you are, or not when I assess whether your obedience was adequate. When I see this sign, God wasn't looking for reasons to move on from that house. He was looking for this sign so he had a reason to stay. He wanted to cover them and to protect them. That blood that was there, it wasn't a credential that Israel earned. It was a sign that he specified so that he had something to respond to. He told them exactly what would cause him to stand over the house. And then he watched to see if they would actually do that specific thing that he described, not an elaborate version of it. It wasn't even anything impressive. It was just something very specific. He said, I want to see who my people are so I can cover them and protect them. Not his people in the sense of like, who are the ones that I chose? Who are the ones that are choosing me? I want to know who chooses me, who chooses to obey, who chooses to stay. I want to cover you. Who's going to say yes? That was the first time I've read that in that way, and I was like, ugh. Is there anyone else like you, God? You are so good. That makes me that changes the meaning entirely for me. Because this, where we are in Exodus 12, this is one of the hardest It is a very difficult chapter. But when you look at it in that way, to me, it's like, wow. Yeah. Jay, that reminds me too of like, imagine a storm all around and you have like a father covering his children, like a tornado or something crazy like that, a massive storm, and you're in your house and you're like, go underneath the stairs. I just need you to go underneath the stairs. That's it. That's as simple as the instruction is. And he's like, and I'm going to be at the door, keeping it closed so that you don't like be taken away in this storm. If you guys are just joining, we are in Exodus 12. We have been unpacking the Passover instructions. So welcome in. If you guys are just joining and you want to hear more about Exodus 12 in the depth of what we're going through, and you want to maybe hear it in a way that you've never heard it before, I want to know who's going to be with us. Good morning. If you are new, I have a gift for you. At the bottom left hand of your screen, it's my thank you for you guys. And if any of you have to leave early or miss it, or you just are like, I love this, I have to listen to this again, there's maybe parts I missed because I'm multitasking, you can get the replays. That's usually me. I'm usually multitasking. Yeah, he always gives the simplest instructions, and our brain says, not enough. That is exactly what today is. He keeps it simple because he wants us to act like it to be something that is achievable. So we're unpacking the Passover instructions that God gave Israel the night before the final plague. This was the night before everything changed, right? We've been finding things in this text that I feel like I have missed over multiple times, that most people might miss over. I am so happy that you guys that are so new are like happy to be here, because we are so happy to have you. Before I keep going, I want to re-ask the question that I opened with. Have you ever done a very specific thing that God has told you to do, and you looked at it and it was almost too small that you couldn't trust it? Right? Similar to what we just went over. God gave an instruction, just put that sign on the door. And you're like, there has to be more. This is massive. This is significant to me. That's all I have to do. How many of you have ever felt that? If that is you, please drop a Y, or that's me, or yes, whatever that looks like. If you're in that place right now, if the thing that God has asked of you, it feels too ordinary to be enough, that's where we're going to be at. So we're in the part where God has given Israel the lamb instruction, and he said, I want you to put blood on the door, the hyssop, right? That part. And then he gives them an instruction, and that's actually going to be the hardest one. So I want you to stay for this second part, because this next section is the one. So in verses, we ended on 13. So I'm going to read from 14 all the way up until 22. So it's a lot of reading. So just stay with me. So this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall ever eat its leavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and on the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on them, but that which everyone must eat, that only may be prepared by you. So you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this same day I have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days no leaven shall be found in your houses, since whoever eats what is leavened, that same person shall be cut off the congregation of Israel. Whatever he is Whether he is a stranger or a native of the land, you shall eat nothing unleavened. In your dwellings you shall eat unleavened bread." Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Pick out and take lambs for yourself according to your families, and unalive the Passover lamb. And then you shall take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel of the house doorpost with the blood that is also in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of this house until morning." I feel like I would need the instructions written somewhere. I get it, like, don't eat unleavened bread. But then I'd be like, wait, you said 7 days, and then there's 21, and then, like, I'd be like, I need this somewhere. This is too important. I don't want to miss it. But I also think, too, because God knew the magnitude of what was to come, it was something that he met them where they were at, right? He says, don't leave, just stay inside. Don't go check on it. Like, don't go open the door and look down the street and try to assess whether the blood is visible enough or whether your neighbors across the way have done it yet. Like, just listen to I think in this, he's saying, keep your eyes on me. We're about to walk through something, but I need you to keep focused on me. Stay inside your house. Trust what you put on the door is doing what I said. Like, trust what you're doing is enough. So we're going to bring it back to the psychological piece, as we always do. Because I think this is like a very human moment here. And this specific instruction for a specific kind of person. Okay, so our nervous system has been trained to monitor. That's exactly what it is meant to do. This is what happens to a person that has been in enough uncertain seasons to learn that staying alert is how you survive them. So what do we do in those situations? We watch for signals, right? We look, I do this on trash day. This made me think of this. I'm like, I go and look out. I'm like, today is the day, right? So I go and look and see if my other neighbors have put out their trash yet. And if they haven't, I'm like, wait, oh, right, it's been a holiday, so I need to wait one more day. And if they have put it out there, I'm like, oh, okay, I was right, right? So like, we watch for signals, we track what's moving and what's not, okay? So we read data in real time and we adjust, because if we were waiting, like if we wait with no information, that has cost us before, right? Like, even if I use the trash example, if I didn't look and see my other neighbors putting the trash out, like on a certain day, I would have missed it. And then I'm like, darn it, now I got to keep my trash in my house for a whole extra week because I missed trash day, right? We have seen that. So if we don't stay alert, like, that's such a simple, there's so much more complexity to this, but that's just the first example that pops into my brain, right? We watch for signals, we track what's moving and what's not, and we read data in real time, and we wait. Because we get as much information as we can, because in the times where we haven't, it's cost us something. So there's been some version of us that says that I should have caught this earlier. Like, that version of it, it lives inside of our operating system, and it makes you very good at surveilling certain things. And so when God says, stay inside with the door closed, don't assess what's been happening outside, that instruction is hard to do. How many of you guys, even, we do this in the Midwest all of the time. Anytime there's a tornado warning, we don't listen. We want to go see the storm. We want to see if there's a tornado. So like, we stand outside of our homes until it's like, you absolutely need to go inside. The instruction to just, like, the meteorologist will say, get in your homes, go down to the basement. And we're like, I just want to see a little bit longer, right? So the instruction is very hard because we feel like it's going to cost us something specific. Because you're rereading the analytics at like 5 p.m. when there's a storm and you're like, oh, right? Yep. We all do that. We're very nosy. You stand in the backyard. Good morning to all of you guys too, if I haven't said good morning. Like we do this even on social media, right? You're checking to see whether our post is performing. We post it and we come back and we check and we check and we check. And we're watching to see, well, what does my favorite creator do, right? Like what is happening with their posts? What do other people's results look like? We're trying to map them into our own situation to calculate whether, well, am I actually, like, is what I'm doing, is it actually working? Like you're just standing at the door waiting for it, like waiting and wanting it to open up a little bit. That's not anxiety about nothing, right? We know those things they feel very real. That is actually a calibrated nervous system doing exactly what it's trained to do, right? But when the instruction that God gave that night, it was not to calibrate. The instruction is to stay. He's saying, do the opposite of what your nervous system has told you to do. He knows that that's going to be hard, but he's telling you to trust in him. Trust that this instruction that I gave you is doing exactly what I said it would do. That you going in and monitoring and taking a second glance to see if whether you put the blood exactly in the right order or what your neighbors are doing. Like the monitoring, it's not going to help it work any better. That monitoring is just costing you sleep and peace and the one thing that God actually asked of you that night, which was to just trust, like trust in him. It was trust and stay inside. We've done that, right? We've done that in this season in our lives, in our personal lives, in our business life. Like in our personal life, it's one thing that we've released or that we're in the middle of, or that we're standing at the door of, and we're looking for evidence that it's actually working. Like we have been in this phase of the studies, especially where we're trying to surrender and trying to release something that God is calling us to, and surrendering it and trusting to him. But a lot of times we're looking for evidence that it's actually working. Like the instruction is the same one that Israel received, right? The blood is doing exactly what he said. You don't need to open the door to confirm it. That surrender and the waiting and the trusting, that's exactly all that we need to do. We need to surrender it and to release it and just trust that he is going to do what he said he's going to do. Morning is coming, but we can't see them from inside of the night, right? We can't see it yet from where we are in that darkness. But we have to trust that morning is going to come. Just like we do, right? Every single night we go to sleep and we close our eyes and we trust that when we wake up, fully wake up, for some of us it's still dark outside, but that morning is going to come. We just have trust in knowing that God is going to make it happen. So I want to give you the second little known fact. So this part is the one about the 4-day window and where it shows up again. So that 4-day window, when God told them, you're going to wait 4 days, that lamb was selected on the 10th of Nisan. So this was actually slaughtered on the 14th. So there were 4 days between 4 days of examination in between, right? Like it had to be an unblemished lamb. So it had to be like that for 4 days. I need you to stay with me in this because I'm about to tell you something that I feel like for me when I read it was like, wow. I had to like stop for a second. So approximately 1,000 years after Exodus 12, on the 10th of Nisan, Jesus rode to Jerusalem on what we call Palm Sunday. So for 4 days following that entry, he was examined by the Pharisees, by Sadducees, by Herod, by Pontius Pilate, by every authority that had power to find something wrong with him when he was tried. Okay, they questioned his teaching, his authority, his identity, his relationship to the law, like his claims on the temple. There were 4 days of systemic examination by every credentialed voice in that world at the time. They could not find a single thing wrong. So on the 14th day of Nisan, he was crucified. So actually, what happened is that God built that 4-day examination window into the founding calendar of Israel in Exodus 12. So then 1,000 years later, he used that exact same window on his son. Thank you for that. We know that is not a coincidence. That is the intentionality of God. It's not this nice parallel that got discovered later. That is a calendar that God set in motion in this chapter, in this verse. Like the instructions to select the lamb on the 10th and then wait until the 14th, he was actually building something into time itself that would show its significance 1,000 years later. That gives me chills. I want you to think about what that means for the obedience that God is asking you right now. So when he gave Israel a very specific instruction, like this, specific instruction. For some reason, my brain doesn't want to finish words today. He wasn't solving the problem immediately in front of them. He was laying in a structure that would show up at the most significant moment in human history. He was building with a scope that we can't see inside what chapter that we're living in right now. So some of the things that he has asked us to do, they look very small, like very small practical pieces of obedience. But they're still showing us, they're still going to show us something deeper. Like the thing that you thought, like you did this thing that God told you to do. And you thought that was it, right? But God was building something into that hasn't finished showing itself yet. So he gave this instruction in Exodus 12 that said, you have a beautiful day, Jamie. This instruction in Exodus 12, and it looked like a meal and a door and a night, right? It actually turned into the architecture for something that God was building over the course of 1,000 years. If God is asking us to do it, there's significance in it. Nothing that he asks us to do is ever wasted. So even if it appears to be small on the outside, he is always working it into something bigger, even if we don't live to see the fullness of what he has done with that. The example that I used earlier when you guys asked, like, what's an example of small? If I were to message somebody and God said, just message them and say good morning. And you're like, all right, God, that's all you want me to do? Maybe that person that you said good morning to was on the fence about their faith. And they said, God, I just need you to move. Show me that you're real. And that one good morning was the thing that solidified it. And they went on to spread the gospel and to help countless other people with it. Like, you never know what he's doing in those moments. You'll know. Sometimes God is very specific. And I also used to think too, like, as you said, well, how do you know that he says text or whatever? Like, he does whatever. He's like, go up to that person in the grocery store and tell them I said the color yellow. Just say yellow, right? Like, he can be very specific. He has done that with me. He told me to do that with this Bible study, right? He said, I want you to be in the Word every day. He tells you in a way that you're going to know. You're going to know. And the thing about it is, if you misstep or you may not get it right there, he'll move you to what he needs you to. We serve a creator that there's nothing too big for him. And he also knows our hearts, so he knows in the ways that it'll reach us. I have experienced that personally. I didn't know the fullness of what he was telling me, and maybe I don't know quite yet. But he said, go live, or he said, be in the Word every day. I thought it meant something else. He led me here. So sometimes the things that we think are too small or too insignificant are the things that he's going to use to build something that we won't ever fully understand sometimes in our lifetime. Okay? You don't have to be a woman. You don't even have to be in business. But I love that you said that, Andrew. The scripture is for everybody. All right, so we are in verses, I want to go through verses 14 through 20, because this is about the feast and the leaven. So we've all heard about the unleavened bread and whatnot. So it says, in this day, it shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. So the word translated as feast here, it's worth knowing because it shares the same root word as another word in Arabic, hajjah. I think it's just Hajj. I don't know what the word is, guys. Essentially, that root word means a pilgrimage or a sacred appointed gathering. So this wasn't a private observance or something that you did alone on your own rhythm. What this means is it's a gathering towards a gathering that people actually traveled towards, and it was this recurring meeting. So God isn't saying, remember this day by yourself. He's saying, make it a gathering. Make it something that people come together for. Make it this kind of thing that you structure your calendars around, because it's worth structuring your calendar around. Like, he's not done with this one interaction. He wants it to be something that they build an infrastructure for ongoing encounters with one another. So the instruction about the leaven, he says, 7 days you're going to eat unleavened bread. The first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whomever eats leavened bread from this day, from the first day until the 7th day, that person, they're going to be cut off from Israel. Don't eat leavened bread. Like, leaven is interesting because leaven isn't like, it doesn't announce itself. Like, you don't put leaven in your bread immediately and see the damage. Like, it works gradually throughout the whole thing. So what happens is, over time, what you put in it, it rises differently and it tastes differently, and it has a different character than what you started with. From what I remember, leaven is yeast. If you guys know, and that's not right, please correct me. But I think it's the yeast. So when you make bread, you have to put a rising agent, which is typically yeast. I love making bread. I haven't done it in a while, but I love making bread. And so it says, don't do that. Don't put that in there. So this is why leaven in Jewish it's actually thought to represent like a slow corruption. So the thing that changes the nature of what it touches through proximity and time. It doesn't happen dramatically. It's not like as soon as you put the yeast in your bread, it's going to explode, or like it's going to just corrupt right away. You don't even notice it. Because in order for your bread to rise, like for those of you who don't bake, it takes a long time for it to rise. So as soon as you put yeast in it, like you have to put, the way that I make my bread sometimes is I'll put like, oh, now I can't even remember. You put water and then you put yeast. Like I do like an instant yeast. I don't remember what kind it is. And then I put in one other thing. I think it's sugar, maybe. I'm probably wrong. Anyway, I initially put in 3 ingredients, then I mix it. Maybe it's salt. Anyway, the 3 ingredients, I mix it, and then you have to let it sit for like 5 to 10 minutes. Then it like forms like this little pillowy thing on the top, and then I can put my ingredients in. But if I just put it in right away, I'm not going to notice a difference. Like, yeah, I thought it was sugar. When you put leaven in, it's not a crisis, right? Like, you don't immediately notice anything changing. There's just bread that's been leavened long enough that it no longer resembles what it actually was before it got there. So the instructions that God gives Israel before they leave Egypt is to go find it and get it out of your house. So before you go, before the deliverance happens, I want you to search your house and locate what has been quietly working through everything and remove it. Apply that outside of bread, okay? Don't just look at the literal leaven. Look at what has been in your house that has been quietly corrupting you. And I want you to slowly, I want you to remove it. So this is a business question just as much as it is a spiritual one. Okay? What has been working through your operations, through your business, through your home? That's been so quiet and gradual over the past year that it started to change the character of what you started. Not a crisis, okay? Not like this moment where you failed at something and that you can say, yep, that was the thing. It's been like a slow compromise that went in small, and it's been working through your systems, your content, your client relationships, your personal practices, your standards, your voice. I want to tell you what mine was. Mine was hustle. It destroyed so much of how I was. It put my focus in the wrong place. It said I didn't have enough time for rest. I didn't have the mental bandwidth to focus on things. It went through, and it happened so quietly. I just came into agreement with it because that's just what you do in business, right? If I was hustling and I was taking on more clients and I was doing more, what was I sacrificing? Right? And you have to notice what you're doing now. Like, it tastes like a little differently than what you built originally, right? But you essentially can't identify the exact moment that it changed, right? Like, just one day you wake up and you're like, that's not even why, like, it feels so different than what I started my business as. And God says, before we get anywhere, I want you to locate it. I want you to clear it out, because you can't carry that into this next season, into this new season, what has been quietly changing the nature of the old one. He did that to me. Like, that will always be my testimony. He came into the parts that I didn't even know were broken, and he said, we have to fix those before we can move forward. So that unleavened bread that they ate that night was called the bread of affliction. That was the bread of Egypt, the bread that was made in a hurry with no time for it to rise. They didn't have time for that. They couldn't put in that rising agent. Yep, you got to fix trauma. You got to heal those wounds, those things that you've come into agreement with. God says, eat this on purpose, not as punishment, as memory, as the specific sensory experience of what haste and hardship taste like, so that when they're no longer in that moment, they're going to remember it. There's a reason that God didn't want them to forget what Egypt felt like. I think most of the seasons, like the seasons that you feel probably the most relieved, are often the ones that you leave with a lesson. And those lessons are the ones that are needed to help carry you forward. So that unleavened bread was actually a mechanism for keeping what was accessible. I want to say something that I feel like is probably going to hopefully hit home for some of you guys. That's so funny that you say that. Literally, your message came in about how my messages always hit home immediately after I said that. That's too funny. You built something that was very specific and intentional, like it was very clear. A clear voice, a clear set of standards about what you would and wouldn't do, right? Over the past year, maybe two, you've made adjustments to it, like small ones, reasonable ones, like an adjustment that made the offer easier to sell, or the piece of content it performed. So you kept doing that version of that, and you performed enough of it so that even though it wasn't exactly what you would have chosen, you keep doing it because it works. Like, maybe you're slowly compromising your values just a little bit more because it's working and it's getting you results. Like the client you took, even though you knew something was off, but you took it because the numbers made sense, right? You're like, I don't have time for it. Or maybe it means that I'm going to have to give up my weekends, but I'm going to do it because I need more money, right? Even though you're perfectly fine how you are. Or the one thing you said you would never do, you find yourself slowly starting to do that. Like the standard that you relaxed a little bit because the season was hard and you needed this one as a win. You're like, I'm going to do it. In those moments, it probably didn't feel like corruption when they happened. It felt like I just need to do this. This is smart. This is a smart move for my family or me. Or it fits so perfectly. How could it not be, right? Like I'm being a grown-up who understands how the world works instead of being idealistic. But now you're looking at what you've built and something in you, you're not fully satisfied with it. You can't even pinpoint a single moment where it went wrong, because it didn't go wrong in a moment. It leavened, right? Gradually through a accumulation of a lot of small, reasonable adjustments. Like maybe you even procrastinate to the point where like you're like, it's fine, I always get it done. And then you keep procrastinating because nobody said anything about it, to the point where you've done it so much that it catches up to you. Right? The instruction is to search the whole house and clear it out, all of it. Not because you're in trouble right now, but you're about to go somewhere new and you can't go there. You can't go there carrying what you've been what has been working through everything that you've been building. So when they went to search for leaven, it isn't discipline. It's him preparing them. I want you to actually look at verse 46 for a moment. So in verse 46, it says, let me find verse 46. In the house it shall be eaten, and you shall not carry out any of the flesh outside of the house, nor shall you break one of its bones. Okay. So that's in Exodus 12, verse 46. In one house it shall be eaten. We're in the book of Exodus. You shall not eat any of its flesh outside of the house, nor shall you break one of its bones. Don't break any of its bones. This is a food preparation instruction that's sitting in the middle of logistics about a household size and how to handle the leftovers of it. So when you cook an animal whole, you want the marrow and the full nutrition. Like you don't break the bones of it. God says, do not do that with this one. I just want you to eat it. Don't break the bones. This sounds like a really practical rule inside of this sentence about how to eat a Passover meal. But actually, when we go forward into John 19, it actually records what happens in the crucifixion. So the Roman soldiers come to take the bodies away from the crosses before the Sabbath began. And how they do that is they break the legs of the two men that are crucified on the either side of Jesus. And they do it to speed up the process. So when they come to Jesus, he was already gone. He had already passed away. They didn't break his legs. So John actually stops his account and writes this: for these things were done at this scripture should be fulfilled. Not one of his bones shall be broken. And what he's doing is he's actually quoting Exodus 46. So there was one instruction that was given in one verse, and it was a practical sentence in an area that was speaking about how to eat a meal. And there was one specific biological detail that would apply to one person 1,400 years later. So God writes with that. He writes with that level of precision. Like when he gives you a specific set of instructions, he's not working with why can't I say this word? Approximations. He's not guessing or like within a certain level. He's working with an architectural detail that is so specific. But a lot of times we don't know that, right? We're living in the chapter and we can't see it. That level of specificity that God gives you, it's not random. He's also not excessive. Like when I think of the ark, he was down to the exact measurements of what that ark needed. He is so specific. There's a reason for the partiality of what God gives you. You may not understand it until much later. Like He may just tell you just enough of what you need so that you have what you need in that season. And when you arrive to the fullness of it, you're going to understand all of it in full detail for so much of it. So in Exodus 12, that sentence, it sounded like he was giving instructions about how to practically handle food, like it was a food rule, but it was actually carrying a prophecy for 1400 years, and nobody knew about that. How incredible is that? So we've been in deep study for about an hour and a half. I want to make sure you guys are with me still. Okay. I want to hear from you guys. At the beginning of this live, and if you guys are just joining, welcome. You guys dropped a why, right? You dropped a why. If the thing that God asked you to do in this season, it felt too ordinary to trust, I want to know, is that landing yet? Is that what we're finding in the text? Like it's reaching that specific place where you came in carrying something today. Okay, and if you guys are just coming in, I want to know who you are. You could say, I'm new, I'm just joining, whatever that looks like. I have a gift for you. At the bottom left hand of your screen, if you guys are new, let me know. My husband can't listen to my Bible studies because he falls asleep. My husband falls asleep all the time, but he's like, your voice is so soothing. I fall asleep. I fall asleep all the time. I'm glad that it's a comfort to you if you guys fall asleep. It's like me falling asleep when I'm praying. And God says, I'm glad it brought you a comfort. But if you guys are new, thank you for that. And you would like the replays, it is at the bottom left hand of your screen, and you guys get your gift, okay? If you want to go deeper into actually hearing God in the middle of this loud season, catch that replay, okay? Especially with Exodus 10 and 11. All of it. All of it. But this is where we are. Okay, we're in Exodus 12. We have been given the instructions. We're in the instruction selection of Exodus 12, where he says, get the lamb, the blood, the door, the leaven. And I want to walk you through the night itself and what happened and then when God moved. I want to show you something in verse 38. I know that we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but it's important, okay? So in Exodus verse 38, I want to read this because it's not something that I've really heard taught. I will say this too, just based on your question. So I probably need to be more specific about this each time I do it. When you guys opt into the live replays, you only have to opt in once. Okay, I do my best to send you them every day in an email, but even if I don't send it, that link stays the same. So even if you subscribe to the YT page, you should get notified about when one drops. But you don't have to opt in every time. It's just one time and I have your info to send it each and every day. Okay? So I want you guys to stay in this because I feel like I have to read this part because it changes how you understand what this whole thing was actually for. So we'll get into verse 38 here in a second. Before I get into the night, I want to slow down right here and talk about who God is in this chapter. Because Exodus 12 is actually very instruction heavy and it reads like a lot of logistics. It's all free. All the replays are free. It reads like logistics. And so sometimes when the text is giving us a list of things to read, we read through the list and then we miss the character of what God is giving. So God actually built the calendar first. He did that in verse 12, like before the lamb, before the door, before anything else. He restructured how Israel counted time at the moment of their deliverance, not after they were out of it, before they even took a single step. He said, from here, you're going to count differently. This is your first month. This is a God who thinks in architecture. right? He is a God who doesn't just solve the immediate problem. He builds structure into moments that will keep showing their significance long after that moment is over. So the calendar instruction in verse 2, it looks like a logistical detail. It actually turned out to be the foundation of how Israel would understand every single future event in relation to this one. So every feast, every cycle, every appointed time going forward, it was counted from this month. So what God did is he built a reference point for all of Israel's future and their history into the night of their deliverance. So what it means for us is that he doesn't build for our urgency. He builds for the full scope of what he's doing. And that's always larger than the chapter, than from what we can see on the inside. Then he uses hyssop, right? This is the most ordinary plant in the region. Not cider, not something requiring preparation or purchase. It was a plant that was growing out of the cracks in their walls. He didn't ask for what they didn't have. He specified what was already there. So every single time God designs an act of deliverance in Scripture, the instrument that he uses is either showing the person something that was already in their hand or something they can find immediately around them. I'll give you an example. So Moses has a staff. David has a sling and the stones in the waterbed or the riverbed. Elijah has a jar of oil that's almost empty. And then we have the widow that has this last handful of flour. I could go on and on, right? God doesn't wait for the impressive instrument to show up or for them to find it. He designs the deliverance around the ordinary thing that is already in reach. He does it on purpose. He does it because the deliverance is his. It's not the instrument's. Then he is specific in the protection. And so he doesn't say, I'm going to protect Israel just broadly. He says, when I see this blood on this specific house, I'm going to stand over it. I'm going to stand over each individual one. I'm going to do it precisely. He's not saying I'm going to get an aggregate protection for a group of people that are going to view from a distance. This is God standing at each individual door, each threshold, like each household, house by house, covering each one specifically. He's not protecting you generally. He's protecting you specifically. He was specific about you, about your household, about what you would put on the door. That is his instruction. He is that same God who was at each Hebrew door. He did it that night. He was standing guard because of what he placed there at his word. It's something specific about what we're carrying. Okay, then he includes more people than what Israel was even expecting. Okay, so I want to get back to verse 38. And I don't want to read past this part. It says, a mixed multitude went up with them, and flocks and herds, a great deal of livestock. Okay? A mixed multitude also went up with them, not just Israel. This was a mixed multitude. People who were not Hebrew, who were not a part of the original covenant that God gave with Abraham, who hadn't grown up with this story, who weren't in the bloodline. People who watched what God actually did in Egypt and they decided they wanted to go where he was going, like where all of that was going. There were Egyptians in that first group. There were people from other nations who were in Egypt who had watched the plagues, who had seen what had happened to a nation that refused the God of Israel, and who actually looked at what was happening that night and thought, I want to go with this. That is amazing. And they walked out with Israel. They walked into that same wilderness towards the same promised land under the same covenant protection. That's because God's door was never as narrow as the people inside of it actually assumed. That Passover was given to Israel, and the instructions were given to Moses and Aaron for the congregation of Israel. But on the night of the actual deliverance, when the blood was on the door and the morning came and it was time to leave, there were people who walked out that were never a part of the original plan. They were never part of, well, I shouldn't say the original plan, the original audience. They were never part of the original audience for the instruction. They were actually there because they had proximity. They wanted proximity to what God was doing, and it made them part of it. So I'm going to bring it down because we have people that have been watching what you're carrying right now who have not said a single thing to you. People that are in your proximity to your platform, to your content, to your business, to your faithfulness, who are watching what God is doing, and they thought, well, what you've built and they've thought about what you've built, and they've been quietly deciding that they want to go where that's going. They maybe haven't raised their hand. They might not have introduced themselves yet. They are the mixed multitude, right? And when the moment a public movement comes, there are going to be people that are walking out with you that you didn't plan to recruit. Like, you didn't recruit them, you didn't plan on it, you didn't expect it. Oh, and you can stay. God's deliverance had a wider door than his people anticipated. Think about that. I see this time and time again, and I experience it in my own life. There are people in your life that are looking at your faith, and they may not be going to church with you. Maybe they mock you. Maybe they make good-hearted comments, right? But they're not followers, right? Well, they'll ask you questions, and they see what you're doing, and they see how God's moving in your life. And they might be thinking, could he do that in mine? What is this God that they have spent so much time learning about, who they love so much? More often than not, it's not that they don't want to know God, but they feel some sort of rejection. They've painted a misunderstanding. And sometimes they're looking to you to see if that misunderstanding is true or not. Right? They think, well, if that person loves him so much, if that person talks about Jesus so much, maybe he's worth knowing. Right? Like, sometimes the people that you would have never expected are the people that end up by your side later on. So when we look at verses 29 through 36, it says, "And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. So Pharaoh rose in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not one household where there was not one that had passed away. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and he said, 'Rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said. Also take your flock and your herds as you have said, and be gone and bless me also.' And the Egyptians urged the people that they may send them out of the land in haste, for they said, 'We shall all be gone.' So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in the clothes of their shoulders. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they had requested. Thus they plundered from the Egyptians." All right, so I'm going to take a drink really quick. All right, so at this point in time, midnight. For those of you that have been following, you know that there's significance in midnight. Israel is inside their house, and they've eaten the lamb. They put the blood on the door. they're dressed, they have their sandals on, they have the staff in one hand, and the original text says that they ate in haste, like in alarm, like in the posture of people who are about to move and they're waiting, but they don't have access to what's actually happening outside. So they don't have anything visibly. They don't have anything. They don't have any visibility into whether the instruction was actually working. They just have the sign that they put on the door and the sound of the night. And at midnight got moved. And the text says that Pharaoh rose in the night, and he and all of his servants and all of the Egyptians, they all moved, right? They arose in the middle of the night, and there was a great cry in Egypt, because there was not one house where there was not one that had passed away. So if we read that really carefully, it says, not a house without loss. So from Pharaoh's palace to the dungeon, from the highest rank to the lowest, every single family, every structure of the Egyptian society in one night. And the houses with the blood on their door, nothing. The blood wasn't sophisticated. Israel hadn't earned a special status. They weren't any better than the Egyptians in any measurable way. But because God said, when I see this sign, I'm going to stand over that house. And he did. So when Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in the morning, in the night, in the middle of the night, it was still midnight, and he said, rise up, get out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel. I want you to go. Take the Lord as you said. Take your flock, take your herds, do it as you said, and just be gone. After more than 2 years of Moses having walked into that palace and Pharaoh saying no, the word finally came, like, go. He didn't just say, like, just go. He urged his people to hurry their departure from the land. And he said, we shall all be unalived. Like, we need to go right now. Israel didn't negotiate their way out. They didn't try to convince Pharaoh. They said, you know what? We're going to go. God moved in the night on what was impossible on the morning of the 14th day. It was before sunrise on the 15th. So there's a part of us that have been trying to negotiate our way through certain things, work our way around it, because I'm sure like trying to leave in a haste in the middle of the night was not ideal. God can move on it in a night, in a single instance. Okay? I want to give you the fifth little known fact. In verse 41, I was already on that page. In verse 41, it says, and it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the Amorites of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. Okay? To the very day, God had made a promise with Abraham in Genesis that he said, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and it will afflict them 400 years. And after they shall come out with great possessions, right? That was 430 years to the very day. Then the armies of the Lord went out. Okay. It didn't happen approximately, not a general era that this was going to happen. Not even around a time that God, to the very day. That was 430 years of generations living and passing away inside of a promise that not one of them ever personally saw the completion of. There were grandmothers who held that promise. There were mothers who had passed on. There were children who grew up in a family. The very family that God had said. And every one of those generations passed away in Egypt without seeing the morning. And then on this specific day, God had scheduled. When he made the promise to Abraham, that morning came. That's because God doesn't operate in the general vicinity of what he said. He operates he operates with such precision on a timeline that we can't even see from where we're standing right now. And a lot of us have been reading it as lateness. Like that lateness is evidence of our breakthrough in what God has been working through, with what God has been working as approximations. And we keep treating it like evidence that maybe the timing is off, that maybe the promise wasn't as specific as we thought. Maybe the delay means that something went wrong in the plan. Like I messed up, God had to shift things, maybe it was taken away. Like that delay that we're seeing in Exodus, it's not precision. It's not imprecision. It's architecture. Because God was building something over 430 years, and it required every single one of those years. So the people that were born in year 1 of Egypt, they were still part of the structure, even though they never saw year 430. So we're part of a structure whose full scope that we can't even see inside the chapter that we're currently in, to the very day. So when we look at verse 37, okay, it says verse 30, I was on that page. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Rameses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. A mixed multitude went up with them, and flocks and herds, and a great deal of livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes out of the dough which they brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were driven out of Egypt and couldn't wait, nor had they prepared provision for themselves. Now the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years, and it came to pass at the very end of the 430 years, on the very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night of solemn observance to the Lord, for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the night that the Lord, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. Okay. I don't know why I can't see that. I was struggling to read that. I find it to be so interesting. 600,000 men were on foot, right? We know that included women and children as well. But scholars estimate that the women and children, with the women and children, the total number, so the 600,000 was just men. We know that also women and children were included in that, right? So scholars estimate that with the women and children involved in that, the total number was probably somewhere between 1 and 2 million people. All of those people moved out of Egypt in one night. I can't imagine what that looked like. They moved out of Egypt in one night. They had lived in Rameses. That was their address, their neighborhood. That was the place that their children knew as home. And in one night they left. There wasn't a transitional plan. They didn't do a graduate. It was boom, you need to move. They left because God had said that it was time and the morning had finally come. And then in verses 35 and 36, that is very easy to just go right past. It says, now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and articles of clothing. And the Lord had given the people the favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them. They granted them that when they requested it. Thus they plundered the Egyptians, right? We know that as that being foreshadowed in Genesis 15. Just to remind you guys what that also includes. So God had told Abraham afterwards that his descendants were going to come out with great possessions. And here it is. They walked out with the material wealth of Egypt. They had the gold and the silver and the clothing of the nation that held them. But the timing of it, they didn't accumulate this after they were settled. It wasn't built slowly into their freedom. It was in the transition, in the exact moment that it looked like an evacuation, what looked like an evacuation, crisis, or finally just being released after way too long, that plunder, it happened in the exit. So what that means for us is that we're going to come out of this season with things that we didn't go in with. And we're going to come out of that, not eventually. It's going to happen in the transition period. Like the things that God is building in you, the capacity, the theological depth, the resilience, the understanding of his character, that can only be formed in a season like the one that you're in right now. Like the one where you're accumulating right now. Like in the one that in the middle of it looks like the hard part. Like the part that looks like the endurance rather than you acquiring something. You're not waiting for the accumulation until you're out. The accumulation is happening in the exit part of it. So I want to say something here that's different from anything that I have heard so far. And when I studied this, I was like, you guys have to see this. Okay. A lot of us have been looking at our season and only measuring it by what we can actually see. Like whether things are actually moving or whether our numbers are actually growing or whether the work that we're doing is producing like visible results, even at a rate that matches all the effort that we're putting in. Right? By that measure, I think for a lot of us, this season has been unsatisfying. Okay, maybe even discouraging, whether that's in business or our personal life, right? Maybe the hearts of those that we love hasn't been moved enough, or we're not making enough of an income, or you name it, right? Maybe the kind of slow that when we look at it, it makes us question whether we're even doing the right thing. But here's what Israel looked like from the inside of that season. From the outside, there were slaves in Egypt. They were oppressed. They didn't have a status. They didn't have freedom. They didn't have any visible momentum, right? That was decade after decade of the same hard thing with no sign of the morning that would be to come, right? From the outside, it looked like this promise that God had given on their lives, it is not working, right? That's probably what they think. But from God's vantage point, he was actually building a nation, and he was forming people whose experience of suffering would become the emotional bedrock of their theology. The God of Israel, he's consistently described in scripture as a God who brought you out of Egypt. So every single time Israel needed to understand who God was, they actually went back to that. So that suffering that looked like a delay, that was the thing that made that deliverance so personal, and it was permanently theirs. They couldn't have received it. They couldn't have received the morning the same way if they hadn't been inside of the night. The night isn't something that's happening to you. The night is actually happening for you. And I don't mean that just to sound inspirational, like that's not an inspirational statement. I am saying that because it is a theological reality from the text. God is working in the years, like in the years of Egypt, in a way that the people living inside of those years couldn't have seen or measured. And what he built in them in those years, through the years, like they walked out with them on the morning of the 15th of Nisan, and it became the foundation of their entire national identity for the rest of history. So what he's building in you in this season, it's going to be the foundation of something you can't see yet. And the fact that you can't see it from inside the night, it's not evidence that it's not happening. It's evidence that you're still in it, because the morning is coming. And when you walk out, like when the morning comes and you walk out of that place, you're going to walk out with more than what you went in. So at the top of this live, you dropped a why, right? You dropped a why if you have ever done what God told you to do, and you looked at it and you thought, there is no way that this is enough. This is too small. This is probably too ordinary. Surely he meant more than that. Like he meant more than what I'm seeing right now. I want to bring it back to that why. Israel put blood on a doorframe from a plant that they pulled from the ground, and they kept a lamb in their house for 4 days in front of neighbors who found it offensive. And then they ate their meal standing up. They were dressed to leave. Before they had any single piece of confirmation that they were actually leaving, they stayed inside all night, and they didn't have any visibility into whether what they were doing was working. They didn't have any data, no status update. They just had this blood that they put on the door and the sound of grief. That grief that moved through the streets around them, and nothing was happening for what they could specifically see. Right? That was enough. Not because the blood on the door frame was inherently some sort of power, right? Because God said it was. And when God specifies the thing, the power is in the word that he spoke over it, not the material itself. God wasn't waiting for Israel to make the blood more impressive before he could stand at the door. He was waiting to see if they would even put it on the door. He wanted to see if what they put on the door is what he told them to put on it. So your obedience is not waiting for the result to validate it. The result is not proof that the obedience was right. The proof is that the obedience is right because that's what he said about it. He says it is. And everything else is mourning. And mourning is coming. So if you dropped a yes, that's me, or a Y at the top of this live, or throughout it at any point, even now, you were right to recognize that the thing looks small. It does look small. The hyssop is the most ordinary plant in all of the region. The lamb is just a lamb, right? The blood is just blood. It being on the door was not impressive. We're not dealing with impressive. You're dealing with a God who built a calendar that would prove it would prove its significance 1,000 years later. Okay? We're dealing with a God who wrote one sentence in practical food preparation that would apply to one biological detail 1,400 years later. This is a God who told Abraham that it would be 430 years, and he showed up to the very day. So the parts of us that think, God, you're calling me to something, and it's just too ordinary what you're asking from me, the thing that he asked you to do, it's not undermined by how ordinary it looks. If anything, the fact that it seems ordinary, that's the point. God doesn't need your impressive, right? He needs your obedience. And when he gets it, he stands at the door of what you have, which you've trusted him with, and he covers it. So before we close this in prayer, because we close every study in prayer, I want to make sure that you guys know about our prayer call tomorrow. If anything in this morning reached you, like it was like, I needed that, whatever that is. If you're in a season where you've been carrying something in private and you're doing what God said and you're waiting for the morning and you're just trying to stay inside and every part of you wants to check and see if the door is open, you want to open the door and check on it, I want you to come to our prayer call tomorrow. Okay? I have a weekly prayer call. This is only for the ladies. I know that there's guys on here and that's okay, but this prayer call is only for us ladies. Okay? It's for women who are building something and we're doing it in faith. And I want you there because I need you to know that we are doing this together and you're not alone, and we're going to pray specifically over one another, and we're going to bring that real version of what we're holding on to, not an edited one, the actual version, and I cover you in prayer. You don't have to say a word. You guys were so beautiful last week. You gave me all my flowers, right? You guys were so sweet. But I want you to know that when we show up to this prayer call, it's on a separate platform. You just come as you. You don't even have to turn on your camera. You don't have to speak. It's my time that I get to pray over you individually. Well, I do it as a group, but I take your prayers away. And I pray over each and every one of them. Okay? So you guys just message me. Actually, give me 1 second. Because I don't think I have it on this live. Is it showing up as an option for you guys as the prayer call? Because I don't think it's up. I think I have to show it. So can you guys give me just 1 second? Okay, I'm going to do show, and you let me know if you guys can see it here. It should say Tuesday prayer call. It doesn't show. Let me see if it's saved. If it doesn't, you guys can, sorry, I guess I didn't tell you where. On the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a gold icon, and it says, if you click on it, you should see one that says Tuesday prayer call. Okay, so if you click on that, that should be on there now. That will send you all the details for it, and I will pray for you. You guys can put your prayer request in here too. But if you want to join us for that, we do that around 10:30. I think the little notification is going to tell you it says 10:45. I keep meaning to change that. It's 10:30. So we meet at 10:30 a.m. Central to be on that call. Okay? But continue to put your prayer request in here as well. All right? All right. And Sandra, if you have to go, you can. We're just going to close in prayer. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to spend about 2 hours in your word this morning. Father, I pray that you awaken us to see more of your character, to highlight the things that maybe we've missed that apply directly to the season that we're in right now. Father, we know that you are that incredible God, that all we have to do is walk in obedience, that to just trust in you, and you will be that beautiful protection over our homes, over our lives, that you won't just pass by, you will intentionally stretch your arms out and cover us. Thank you for being such a beautiful Father. In the times where we have failed to see you in our lives, Father, I pray that we get to know more of you so that we can see all the ways that you are right here with us in every season. I know that you see every comment as it comes in, Father. Please, I pray to give us strength, for comfort, and for peace, knowing that you have made a way, that you have taken care of every need even before we knew it was there. Thank you for all you do in our lives, Father. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. All right. So tomorrow we are going to be in Exodus 13. And I want to thank you guys for being here, especially on a Monday morning and bearing with me. If you guys, if you're watching on the replay, let me know, okay? Let me know how this was for you. You guys are always invited to join us live on TikTok. I go live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central. I go live for about 2 hours. Tomorrow is our little bit shorter day because it's Tuesday, and we have our prayer call. But if you guys want the replays, it is free to you. There's an option in that little gold icon with an arrow at the bottom of your screen to hit replay, and I will send them all to you. You only have to do it once. Okay? And we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to keep going at 9 a.m. Central, same place here on TikTok. The replay will be up here by the end of today. Okay? I will email you when it's done. And I thank you. If you guys haven't gotten your gift and you're new here, at the bottom left of your screen, there is in that same place where you can get the replays, the prayer calls, all of those things. You can also get your gift, okay? So, all right, you guys, I thank you. Do you have any questions about this study or anything? I will stay on for maybe like 2 minutes. Unless you guys have questions consistently coming, then I will answer those. But I have a little bit of time. Yep, our prayer call is tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Central. I do that every Tuesday for the women. At the bottom left hand of your screen, there's a gold icon with an arrow. If you click on that, there should be an option that says like message me or DM me, or it might just show up. If you don't see it, you can DM me and say replays. Anything. Anything that you guys are not seeing, you can DM me. Okay? No, prayer call is tomorrow. That's okay. Every Tuesday. Yep, every Tuesday. But thank you for the reminder. Last week I was like, what? It's Tuesday. I thought it was Monday. Since I didn't go live on Monday, I was like, oh, since it was Memorial Day. So always thank you for the reminders. You never have to apologize. I also did want to say thank you guys for the gifts and the hearts and the follows and the shares. Thank you for making this community so beautiful. I plan to launch our members-only community here in just a couple of weeks. I got to get some, I want to have it a little bit prepared ahead of time. So I want to figure out what we'll be studying, try to get that prepped so that I'm not scrambling. I try to be as prepared as I can. Doesn't always work out, but so I will let you guys know with enough advance notice if you guys are interested in that. So, all right. Well, I thank you guys for being live with me every day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.